That spark of innovation, it's just waiting for the perfect combination of tools and talent to bring it to life. Welcome to Pitch, Build, Scale. I'm your host, Chris Fanchi, a recovering startup founder, veteran SaaS marketer, turned dev tech enthusiast and growth specialist. Each episode, we connect with the builders, the visionaries, and the problem solvers who are redefining what's possible with today's technology and pioneering the websites, apps, and software products of tomorrow. These are the conversations that transform how we build, how we sell, and how we scale technology businesses in a world where the tech evolves by the minute. Ready to stay ahead of the curve? This is Pitch, Build, Scale. Hello and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting guest. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're Big North Marketing and specialize in helping dev shops and SaaS companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your SaaS or dev business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. We're really excited to have today's guest. Lance Neuhauser is CEO and founder of Wendy, an AI-powered, choice-based story-building platform for kids designed to reimagine storytelling and boost reading engagement. Lance is an accomplished technology CEO and services leader with a proven track record of founding, scaling, and exiting venture and private equity-backed SaaS and global service companies. At Wendy, he's on a mission to increase children's reading by leveraging AI to create safe, interactive, and customizable story experiences. Lance, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
So I like to start with your origin story or background. What first got you into technology?
That's an interesting way to phrase the question. I didn't know I was going to go into technology when I first did. I was in school, college, undergrad, in late 90s, and the internet was just becoming a thing. And I was really fascinated by the speed at which things were evolving, that the momentum that small ideas were able to pick up, and how big and ubiquitous they were able to get in a short period of time. And that type of opportunity really called to me. I've always been a big fan, and found a little bit of strength in my ability to help communicate and spread the word on ideas that may really help change things for folks. And so again, that potential drew me in. But 2 years, 5 companies, and 8 roles later, as a result of mergers, bankruptcies, acquisitions, you name it, I found myself on a Friday afternoon being told that almost everyone from my group was going to get let go, and that we should come with our box prepared on Monday. And I was just riding the L in Chicago, and saw an ad for a billboard, for an MBA in e-business, it said, which is a funny term. It's actually, ironically, just take a dovetail for a second. It's actually what I think is going to happen with the use of the word AI. When people say, I built this with AI, et cetera, I actually think it's going to go the reverse. I think AI is a tool like anything else, a computer, a calculator, a pen. I think people are going to stop saying it was built with AI, and I think they're going to call out more when something was unassisted. That'll be the term that I'm throwing out there. Anyways, I'm writing this. I see this billboard, and I read what you got a chance to study, like databases and web pages and a series of other things that I knew honestly very little about. And yet here I was excited by the idea of the internet. And so I thought, I think if I really want to understand what communication strategies are in a digital environment, because that's what was really drawing me in, then I need to understand how communication happens in this environment, and that I need to understand what is possible and what's not possible, only to find out that opportunity to build solutions that have never existed before, to be on that kind of jagged technological edge where me and you could be having a conversation, and next thing we know, we came up with an idea that was better than anything else that was created previously, and had the availability to actually do something about it and then put into the world the change that we wanted to see. That became wholly addictive to me. And that ended up being kind of the premise of the rest of my career: early to the internet, early to search, early to social, early to advanced TV, early to AI, because I just love the possibility of delivering on a future I was able to see.
Very interesting. So, did you always have the desire to be an entrepreneur or to run your own business, or is that something that came along as you developed your skills and knowledge?
I remember starting businesses as a little kid, like as young as 10 years old. They didn't really go anywhere, but I was always trying. And I'm a son of two entrepreneurs. My brother's an entrepreneur. My sister's an entrepreneur. I think it's in the blood to solve the problems that we see and to just almost have the, in some ways, blindness and in some ways foresight, which is a ironic combination, to go forth and say, all right, well, we'll just go do it. I only laugh when you ask the question because my dad, who still to this day works, 7 days a week, he said ever since I was a little kid, he's like, don't grow up like your father. Work smarter, not harder. I mean, he and my mom are the ones who taught me work ethic. So in that respect, I'm very grateful for what they showed me. But it is ironic that really neither one of them wanted any of their kids to go into starting their own companies, and here they are walking right into it. I don't know, man. I don't know if I was supposed to choose this path, or it chose me, or it's environment or hereditary. But here we.
That's interesting. How many companies is this now that you've started?
This. Um, is for I started a company called Resolution Media with three others that grew to be the largest search engine marketing agency on the planet at one point. We'd sold that to Omnicom. I had started a company called The Ecosystem, which was based on kind of the wave of social and being able to use that for commerce, and ended up merging with another former head of computer science and engineering at Northwestern University, Dr. Alok Chowdhury. And then we ended up coming together to start this company 4C, which ended up being the largest self-service social ad technology of its kind. And then we sold that. And I was president of MediaOcean for a little while, which was the largest ad tech company on the planet, processing more advertising dollars than Google themselves. And then left to start Wendy, which has been an unexpected experience and has taught me more about, I think, life and business, and life in business and business in life, than I think any of the other companies. And it's been really a blessing, in both professionally and personally.
So, let's dive into Wendy then. What was your inspiration? How did this come about? What made you decide to pursue something like this?
So there's a couple different points here, um, or driving forces. One was that when we had sold MediaOcean and I stayed on to help them make another acquisition and then help with some of that integration, and then left. I took a step back to really figure out what it is I wanted to do. I was advising some companies. I was a CEO coach, and I was a part-time operating partner at a venture capitalist group called Interplay out in New York City. And I remember going to coffee with this guy, Mike, at another venture group, Lightbank, while all this was going on. And he's hearing what I'm doing, and he says to me, "Hey, if you're ever interested in starting another company, let me know, because that's what we're doing, and we back early companies." And I looked him dead in the eye and I said, "Mike, I am not starting another company. It's not going to happen." And then a year later, I called up Mike and I said, "I started another company. Let's talk." I'm very grateful. Lightbank ended up being our first venture backer into Wendy itself. And so that's a little bit of kind of how thrown off I was and how compelled I was by the idea of Wendy to actually start the company. There were there were two things happening. One, that Gen AI had just really started to get going. This is February of 2023, and at the time, being that operating partner at the VC responsible for their foundry, helping to spit up new ideas, we were literally just sitting there saying, what do we see is happening in the future? Like, what does this mean for quite literally every industry?" And we started going one at a
Yeah.
time. And we hit on children's story, children's publishing, and something kind of awoke inside me. I have a family history in children's stories. My mom was in the children's book business on the retail side for over 20 years. I have a very famous cousin named Shel Silverstein who wrote many children's books, some of the most famous out there. Again, I didn't really have much of a relationship with Shel because he was out doing his thing, but I did have a relationship with his mother, my Aunt Helen, who from an early age encouraged me not just to read stories, but to create them, and more importantly, to tell them. And I didn't realize how far advanced my aunt really was in kind of starting to see what storytelling did for her own son, because little known that it didn't just provide the career for Shell that it did. She actually told me at a young age it helped him build much more emotional intelligence. It helped him make more sense of the world. It helped ground him in a way where he was able to see things that others weren't. He did, and he did really well in where he applied himself and was able to excel because she said that he was so situated with using stories to again make sense of his world and make sense of the world around him. And so when I all of a sudden saw that this technology could come up and really disrupt this industry, okay, fine, that happens with tech all the time. But the way that it would disrupt it, where it would um, provide some good things, no doubt, personalization and representation for kids, um, isolation, if you're just doing personalization, where the social currency amongst kids is really what they're into, what they talk about, how they build worlds together out on playgrounds and what have you, that it would leave authors and illustrators behind, that had almost no, it gave no credence to other people's IP. Like, I mean, it was just
Wow.
mind-boggling to me as to how this could be so disruptive. And I compared it to the following, right? Napster showed up to the music industry and turned it on its head because it was a free, credible threat. And it took really Spotify and ultimately then Apple Music, et cetera, in order to put something in place that showed the industry that it was time for it to adapt, because there was certainly a value exchange going on. It's not like has been proven that first that was legal, it was not. And second, that people were still willing to pay for the things that they loved and found valuable. And so here was this driving force. And as I started to dive into this, having a 7-year-old, a 7.5-year-old daughter, and now a 1.5-year-old son, and nephews and nieces and friends' kids, something dawned on me, which was just that uh, kids today are growing up with more pressure and less preparation than ever before. Empathy is declining. At the exact moment the world is demanding more creative adaptability and clear thinking, we're kind of leaving kids under equipped. The future they're heading into won't be won by memorizing facts or following instructions. That's going to be available through the AI. It'll be shaped by those who can think critically, communicate clearly, and connect ideas across disciplines and cultures. That's why storytelling matters, not just as an outlet, but as a core development tool. When kids build stories, they're not just being imaginative, they're practicing how to solve problems, organize their thinking, and express complex ideas in a way others can understand. They're learning to take perspective, anticipate consequences, and shape meaning from uncertainty. Storytelling strengthens the very skills that the future demands. And unfortunately, there's just not enough time to teach kids all of this. And as a parent and as someone who's cared deeply about children's stories and the art of storytelling, almost felt had to start this company, had to. And now we really help kids tell their stories, and they can make every choice they want going into a story. They can have it where they just read it, a long narrative where someone reads it to them. They get to choose a voice, or they can make their audiobook. They can take what they've created, their characters, their settings, they could share with their friends so their friends can build stories with the characters that they have. So it becomes this communal experience. And so, we're just at the beginning, and the iPhone actually just launched. You can download it at the App Store. And we have talked to teachers and authors and illustrators to include them in this process. And it's really amazing what parents are now saying, that they're thrilled to be able to give their kids the tools that they need for a future that they are possibly unprepared for. And companies like Wendy are starting to rise up to help augment what children need.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about within the process of the application, where does the line between the AI and what it's creating and the child and their creativity and their input into it? Where is that line and how do you guys kind of tread that line?
Yeah, that cool. Happy to. So in order for kids to start learning the craft of storytelling and story building, we wanted to make sure that they had the ability to see the impact of their decisions in the stories they were creating. Though we didn't expect them to be able, at their ages between 4, 7, upwards of 10 on the iPad, but so 4 to 10 years old, we didn't expect them to be able to write professional quality stories. The great part, and what I have seen in my career, thankfully, is when technology rises up to give the average individual the ability to create professional quality. There's usually these kind of systems that show up that help authors lead, or help professionals lead average individuals to the down the path. And that's what we did here. So I'll answer that concretely. So kids come in and they can choose the type of story that they want, a custom story, a story about a challenge that they're facing. They can choose the genre that they want. They can choose mystery, superhero, adventure, etc. They can choose where the story takes place. They can choose the major plot line. They can choose to create a character that's a human or a bear or other choices. They can give the character a personality. They can give the character a superhero. They can choose the tone. So they start to get into these major elements of the story. They can choose the name of their character. But 2 points on this. One, everything is a choice.
Hmm.
The reason why we went down this path as opposed to open-ended is it allows a couple things to take place. One, the parents then know that this is safe for their kids. We know that everything that they are choosing, we know what goes into the AI, and then we've got systems to know what comes out of the AI, and so it just matches what's going on. They can't type in anything that all of a sudden takes them down a path that no kid should be going down. So first and foremost, choice space is critical for the safety. Second is that it then gives the maximum amount of ability for the child to end up impacting the story. But once they put in all of those inputs, then we take all those inputs and formulate them into anywhere from 5 to 10 minute long stories. And then they can once again reuse the characters and reuse the settings and continue to build on so that it feels more and more like their own creations. And when they see the stories that come back, they feel ownership. Because like, I made all these choices and here it is in the story. And so we do hope it continues to show them how the various components of story building affect stories so that they get better. And then as they grow up and they start writing their own stories where they have the ability to actually deliver quality at a level that they themselves would want to read, then they have a much deeper comprehension. And we know starting kids on learning skills at a younger age because they're able to consume more is a great idea. I'll say one other thing. There was a study that we just came across that was talking about how the world of AI is changing what kids need from an education perspective today. I heard that, and I hope I'm properly attributing this, that it was actually Rockefeller, who made a lot of his money in the railroads and mining and what have you, happened to be around. It's a crazy story. Happens to be around at the time when the education system was just really starting to be formed and put into play. They had all these experts who were watching kids and realizing that kids are naturally incredibly curious. They have this ability to, if they're not right on a solution, change on a dime, come up with new ideas, move to something new. And these educators, they said, we seem to lose this over time. There's actually a stat that I found that kids ask 100 questions at age 5, 100 questions a day. And by age 10, that's down to 30 a day. Not because they have less curiosity, because the system has trained them to stop asking questions. And so why did that happen? So Rockefeller comes around, he's hearing about the education. He's like, I don't want people to think. I don't want people to think. I need people who can do a specific job over and over again and become ultimately machine-like. I don't want them thinking. I want to think. I need them to produce. I need them to be machine-like. He donates, as I've come to understand, about $1 million at that time, which I think is in modern day $37 million, and continues to fund and be a part of the educational development. So it seems like he's this great philanthropist helping education, when ultimately what he's doing is he's shaping people into machine-like folks. Well, in the day of AI now, AI is going to be better at being predictable and being able to provide tremendous answers and resources. And what's going to be uniquely human is going to be our ability to be curious and ask great questions and direct our new tools into the areas that will be most beneficial. And we need to start teaching our kids the way that we are programmed as humans again, so that we could be human-like and take advantage of the machine-like advantages that are happening in AI. Already in China, the kids are getting access to AI 2 hours a day, not because it's being seen as this foreign thing that we don't know, and it could be bad, right? And I'm not defending AI. I'm defending the dream of a better human existence, right? Like, can we continue to use tool to help us connect to who we are, connect with one another, possibly work less? Right? There was a study done. You look at how many hours people worked 100 years ago. They're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. That's come down. People are working less and less and less because you have the opportunity to be more and more productive. I'm hoping that because of this, because what our kids ultimately end up learning is that they can use their minds in different ways, to not have to be attached to a desk certain amount of time, that they can learn how to be empathetic, they can learn how to have wisdom, they can learn how to adapt, they can use their curiosity to fuel all of those things, so that they can actually create the type of world that we know internally is the type of life that we want to live, one that is more humanistic. And these tools and the curriculums in the education system just can't come fast enough and can't adapt fast enough. So we need to augment them with things that will benefit our kids for the future that is ultimately. And it starts with the ancient tool, which is storytelling, and how we ultimately end up connecting with one another. It ends up giving them really one of the core skills that is not being taught enough, and ultimately they need the most in their future.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. So I'm sure you've thought a lot about this. Obviously, the age demographic that you're targeting with these apps, anywhere from what you said, 3 to 10, roughly.
Four to
Four to
ten,
ten.
5 to 10, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the saying is today, right, that the jobs for this generation, for those children don't exist yet, right? Where do you see that going, and how do you see what you're doing and what other AI education companies are doing impacting that direction and that path?
I I think that's right. Again, I hate to keep quoting studies, but I've really been trying to study this as much as humanly possible. There was uh there was a study that looked at 1,100 current jobs and their exposure to displacement or change as a result of AI. Over 900 of them said that they are at high risk for either being displaced or materially changed, requiring almost an entirely new skill set to do the job. And at the bottom of the list were what you would expect, some very manual based situations. And even then, it's funny. I heard this story told, and I ended up doing the same thing myself. That one of the jobs lower on that list is being a roofer, to which my next door neighbor happens to own a roofing company. To which I asked him, I said, "You thinking about AI?" And all he's like, "Of course I'm thinking about AI," but he was thinking about implementing it for marketing and back office functions for now, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, "I still need," but also organizing who goes on what jobs, and the operational components. So the actual job of putting on a roof may not be done by AI anytime soon, although obviously there's big advancements in robotics that are coming. So it's hard to even forecast, all right, what jobs will be available. Here's what I know. Here's what I know. That jobs that expect people to be the ones to have the repeatable production of answers, those are going to be the first that start to go away. There's a lot of writing that's taking place right now that's speaking about how it's really white collar jobs right now that are going to get hit really hard, and
Yeah.
especially entry level white collar jobs, which is particularly difficult because then it means the higher strategic thinking white collar jobs that are oftentimes the most lucrative in our society, there's no entry point into them for the younger generation. And so, how do they then build the skills that they need in order to rise up into those high powered jobs? Now, one then went on and said, wait a second, though, are those high powered white collar jobs also at risk? And the answer is unbelievably yes. And so, it goes back to what I was saying before, that we have to look at what is going to endure as our human nature and as human characteristics, things that we can continue to rely on. I have an acronym for myself. I actually call it human. I think the things that are uniquely ours, although computers are good at replicating them, what actually is ours is our heart, emotional intelligence, ability to connect. The U is understanding, not just how to produce a song that has sad lyrics, but why might someone actually cry as a result of hearing that song, and how you can actually end up using that to connect with other people in a different way. Understanding is key to the understanding the world that we live in, the world around us. M, how do we give meaning to things? The A is awe, and actually experience awe, which is apparently one of the greatest things for our own parasympathetic nerve system. But what our ability to actually convert awe into connected experiences is also uniquely human. And then the N, which is giving narratives and being able to tell stories that allow other people to understand. These are the skills. This allows us to create things with a vision, to decide where we want to put our attention, and I think it's all fueled by curiosity. This kind of need to keep asking questions, and so I I say all that because I don't know the jobs that are going to be there. 3 years ago, no one would have known what prompt engineering is or contextual engineering is, and but what I do feel is that the jobs that are most sought after today will not be the same in the future. And that if we early on with our children give them the tools to understand how to harness their curiosity into emotional intelligence, into new forms of wisdom, into a new level of adaptability, then they will be able to use their characteristics of heart and understanding and meaning and awe and narrative to create a life for themselves that's positive and rewards them with what they need to survive and thrive and for them and the people that rely on them and the ones they love.
Yeah.
And I feel obligated to say one more thing on this. It's not like I'm blind to the problems of AI, right? Like I also heard the study that said there's between a 2 and a 12% chance that by 2060, AI is going to wipe out 10% of humanity. Okay. Do I think that's going to happen? It doesn't matter what I think. Is that feasible? Sure. There are really smart people that think that's feasible. Okay. On the exact opposite side, there are people who think it's really, really feasible that trend of working less and less for more and more output and the ability to then find your own way using the tools I just talked about in order to create a career for yourself is going to be available to us, that it's going to usher in a renaissance era, an age where we get to spend more time following our passions and exploring the arts or business, if that is your passion or whatever it might be, an ability to, our lives spread apart because we don't have time to stay connected to our friends. That no longer has to be the case. The 4-hour work week might actually really be a thing for most people, not just the elite few. And so when we have the choice to believe which of those ends might take place, again, it doesn't help me mentally to think that some dystopian future is coming. And being the entrepreneur and coming from the family I have, if I think it's possible, that there's more of a Renaissance utopian future. This is what I meant before. I'm not defending AI. It can defend itself if it wants to. I'm defending the dream of a better human existence that comes from the advancement of tools. And so between those two futures, give me the utopian future and let us work hard to go build it, not for us, but for our kids and for their kids.
Yeah, and that's really the debate we as a society, as a civilization need to be having right now. And I don't know that we are, because I think there are some people that are moving very quickly because they just see the financial benefits of it. And there are some people that kind of have their heads buried in the sand a little bit still. And I think there's a lot of questions around what the best way to do this is as a society.
I think that's really well said, Chris. And again, I couldn't give you the answers. What I look for is the likelihood of a future that's coming. And the one that is coming is a world that we are not currently preparing our kids for. And as a parent, focusing in on storytelling and giving kids tools to tell their stories is what compelled me so much to start Wendy. It's not, to me, a choice as to whether parents can start to expose their kids to improving in these areas that aren't being taught in school. It's not a choice as to whether to expose kids to the tools that are going to be relied upon in the future. What it is as a parent is to do so with the safest opportunity possible, with the most responsible way of doing it in a way that encourages social interactions and emotional intelligence and the bringing back to the elements that help develop brains, like reading and reading for fun. And so we just put this together into Wendy, and again, it doesn't solve the world's problems, but what it can do is it can start to teach our kids something that they need for the future, and for that, I think that's a call to action amongst parents that now is the time to start using tools like Wendy and others beautiful tools that have emerged as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. What was the process like to build out the AI in this to be able to have the guardrails that you need while still enabling the children to experience the creative side?
Really insightful question, Chris. We made a choice early on for a lot of reasons that we weren't going to create a foundational model ourselves, fine tune and tweak and build around the models, et cetera. Because we're a young upstart. You could see the office space that I'm in. I'm at the front of the office. You can see all the way all the way to the back. And so, uh, yeah, creating foundational models can at this point seemingly take lots and lots of money, and and so that's not core to building an experience that is designed specifically for kids. And that's what was at the heart of what we were doing. What said AI is a set of tools. It happens to be that we're an AI native company in which we have text that comes from AI, and we have images that come from AI, and we've got audio that comes from AI. But we also have built an agent that allows us to see whether or not the reading level is right for the kid. And we took in our own knowledge. We have advisors to our companies that are reading specialists, early education specialists, actual authors, actual book publishers, AI safety specialists, AI infrastructure specialists. They're all part of our organization. And we did that because we said, if we're going to do this, it has to be designed for kids and their needs. This isn't, let's go see what kind of capabilities AI can put out. There are plenty of folks that are doing that, and they may stumble on something that's really useful. So good on them. Okay. But we started with the point that said we need to help kids. And we need to do so in a way that leverages the best of what we know is already for them, that are stories from authors. Every story that a kid ends up building in Wendy ends up having a real story seed that was written by a real author, right? We've got illustrators that have actually created styles just for us. We turned on a call for illustrators. Within 4 hours, we had to shut it off because we weren't going to be able to process the volume that we had. Why is that, right? You see the CEO of Fiverr coming on, and he's saying, all these freelance jobs are evaporating because they're being taken by AI. And we're a quote unquote AI company that's asking and have hired illustrators, right? So this isn't, it doesn't have to be a path where you're saying that this is all about efficiency and chopping out. No, this is about figuring out how we solve problems for the most important people. And we do so in a way that takes advantage of the knowledge and the expertise we built up through time and uses the most modern tools to create the most effective solution for the people that we are trying to help. That's how we went about doing this. So AI was just a tool for us, but we now have this multi-agentic system that checks safety, that checks to ensure that the setting works right with the character that has been chosen, right? So yeah, we're leveraging all the tools available, but that, to me, that's no different than all of a sudden, someone a couple of years ago being like, what we're using for our business to build our business? We're using the internet. I mean, I think people would look at them and they'd laugh, right? No, we're trying to solve very real problems for kids. And you know what happened in the process? We broke some of the models, right? Our demands on this outpaced what some of the models were able to do. And so this, I've learned the term jagged edge. AI has a jagged edge that it's really good at certain things, and then it comes back on other things, and then it's really good on other things, and comes back. And so it's on us to continue to understand and test and learn what can be used safely for kids that can actually help them and not just pull in their attention. Can we give parents a healthy alternative to gaming and social media? Can we start to give kids an exciting reading experience that starts to combat what Scholastic calls the decline by nine, which is in 1 year alone, a 40% drop off in reading for kids between the ages of 8 and 9, and almost never recovers, causing more anxiety amongst kids, long-term educational and career developmental challenges, right? So yeah, great. Everybody use the tools that are available. Just use them to solve a problem, like a real problem that could not be solved previously. but can now as a result of what's available to us.
So what does your roadmap look like in terms of building out the company? Are there other features you're looking to add? Would you be going on to other devices? Is there some plan to branch further into other areas of education?
So the roadmap very much, we are a story company through and through, a new kind of story company for kids. Um, and and the anchor of our company is storytelling. And right now, especially storytelling tools. And so our roadmap is very much focused on giving kids as many and every tool imaginable that they would want, safe tool, put in their stories. So imagine being able to turn their dog into a character. Or be able to capture grandma's voice so that grandma can read stories for the rest of their lives, not the rest of her life, and that they could draw and convert to characters. These are all individual things that are starting to pop up that we plan on bringing into Wendy. We see existing IP that kids love, their favorite characters. We've got something coming out in just a couple of weeks in which our first set of IP is going to be in our system where some of the kids' favorite characters are going to be able to be chosen as in their own stories. And there's this great company, Spiffy, who owns this brand Nature Cat, which was on PBS Kids for years, millions of viewers. The voices of Nature Cat, the Saturday Night Live, some famed Saturday Night Live cast members, and it's really this amazing cartoon. And you have this, and Spiffy created it, and you have this company that is so forward looking and so generous with their heart that they're saying, hey, if these characters, if kids want to create their own stories with them, and it can help them overcome a challenge, because challenge stories is big in our app, where you can come in and if a kid's experiencing big emotions or if they're experiencing challenges in sharing, et cetera, they can create their own stories to help them through this. And so Spiffy's like, if Nature Cat can help with that, yeah, we want to put them in. They didn't say, no AI. They asked very real, astute questions. They're like, hey, we haven't really licensed to AI yet. Like, can you tell us how you're different?
Hmm.
And we said, yeah, here's how we're different. Like, everything is on a content management system for us. All the choices, it's choice-based. That's what I said before. So I'll give you a real tangible example. Nature Cat said, Nature Cat's not a zoo animal. Not. Okay. And zoo's not going to be an option for one of the settings for the choice in Nature Cat stories. No problem. We can control that. And this is one of the reasons why IP holders have been willing to work with us in a different way than maybe other people who put things into too dangerous or open-ended of a circumstance that just they don't know what would happen to their brand. So again, you have really smart people like the folks at at Spiffy who are like, okay, so as long as we understand how this is going to be used, yeah, we're all for continuing to put our characters in situations that allow them to be beloved by their kids and allow the kids to tell stories. So the future roadmap of Wendy is just continuing to give anything and everything that a kid would want to use in their story available to them in a safe capacity.
So one of the big questions with AI is often data privacy and how do you protect the data? And you're obviously working with children, and that data privacy is even more important in that regard. What steps are you guys taking to protect the data of your users?
Yeah, I mean, this one's easy for us. We just don't collect anything from the kids. We don't target kids. We target the parents. We talk to the parents. You can share in our platform and collaborate, but this is no kid in our platform is discoverable, right? Like you have to have a friend code. You basically have to know them in the real world in order to connect. There is there is just no, there's no, we're not learning anything about these kids. What we do get to see, which is really exciting, is what is chosen most often, not at the individual level, right?
Hmm.
But like, are wizards chosen more often than ninjas, right? Like, that's fun insight
Yeah.
and really an exciting insight for us as a company so that we can continue to make characters that we put out as Wendy originals for kids to use, that we can, I had no idea that my daughter liked creating mind reading baby ninja stories or mermaid royalty stories. I had no idea. And here I was able to create stories about challenges that she was facing in her very real everyday life. And I was able to use a princess mermaid and baby mind reading ninja in the same story, and it beautifully came together. Go figure how you could put those two together in a story, and it helped her have a way to consume that she's not the only one that faces the challenge that she was facing, and had a new tactic by which to address it. And she felt a sense of empowerment and ownership over her, and agency that she was able to have over herself, because she made the choices to create this story about this challenge. She put the choices in it, and she was able to get an answer out for herself that she didn't need my intermediation at all to go do that. I just happened to be watching her while she did this. And so to me, that's the essence right there, right? Like that's the essence that we just need to continue to, I've said it 100 times already, give our kids the tools to start to face their own challenges, do so in a safe way, and continue to give them more and more options to make that a reality.
And how much insight do parents get into what the child is doing in the app?
So there's like fun answers, as we said, and again, I hopefully I answered your data question, but we get to, but to your point, the individuals that get the data on the kid are the parents. We get the aggregate data so that we could help kids find and use the things that they want most so that they can tell their stories, right? But the parent, like seeing the challenge that my daughter picked, maybe she would have told my wife that was an issue. It seems to be something that she talks to her about a little bit more. She has certain issues she talks to me about a little bit more. It seems to be a normal dynamic of parenting, but
Yeah.
I just saw it. I just watched what she chose, and it fostered a new conversation with us. Oh, I didn't know you were experiencing that. I can't wait to read your story. Now tell me more. I can't wait to read your story. And then I started asking her questions about the story. Hey, did you experience something similar that the character experienced? No, not exactly. This is what I experienced. Oh, but did the way the character end up resolving it, do you think that could be useful to how you could resolve your challenge? Yeah, I do. Okay, cool. And it was a beautiful experience. And so I think, to your point, data privacy and with any company that's in our position is a non-issue, in the best way possible. And hopefully from an insights perspective, it's really parents who end up benefiting the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. This has been just a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights and talking a little bit about this really interesting and I think important company. So thank you for coming on the show. Where can people find you and learn more about you?
Chris, they can find us at trywendy.com. They can go to the App Store and search for the Wendy app. And I'm at Lance Neuhauser on LinkedIn and most of the socials. But you can also follow us at the Wendy app on Instagram and TikTok and what have you. Thank you, Chris. This was a real pleasure. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening. Please be sure to subscribe, leave us a review. And as always, keep pitching, keep building, and keep scaling. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pitch, Build, Scale. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast provider so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time.